Why are there so many celebrities moving to France right now? I'm French and I live in Paris, and recently I've been noticing a trend of famous people leaving the US and moving to France. And when they are asked why, they all give the same reason, which I don't think is the whole truth. Let me explain. So I first became aware of this trend in my last video on the topic, which is where I learned that George Clooney became French and permanently moved to France. So I decided to investigate, and I found out that the Clooney family bought a chateau in Provence. And not just any chateau. This is the Domaine Le Canadel in Brignoles, which is valued at 8 million euros. It is an 18th century mansion with a lot of different rooms and a giant vineyard. And apparently the Clooneys are not planning to make their own wine, unlike nearby Chateau Miraval, which is a wine estate that has been valued at $164 million, that was owned by Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and that has been at the center of their divorce in what gossip newspaper call the War of the Rosé, which I find to be quite a funny expression. Back on the topic of why the Clooneys moved to France. So if you read George Clooney's interviews on the topic, it's mostly because of our culture of privacy. And he says, "I was worried about raising our kids in LA in the culture of Hollywood. It felt like they were never going to get a fair shake at life. In France, they kind of don't care about fame." And then he continues and he says, "I don't want them to be walking around worried about paparazzi." And I want to unpack that because it is true that in France we do have great privacy laws, even though, as you'll see after, there's more to the story. So you have to know that in France it is illegal to take a photo or a video of someone in a private place like their home or garden, and it is also illegal to publish photos of celebrities in public places unless, you know, their appearance is linked to their job. Like, for example, if they're attending a premiere, that's obviously okay. And by the way, quick tip, this works as well for normal people. So if you're coming to Paris, please do not take photos of people without their consent. It's like a big no-no in France. Also, these laws became stricter after Princess Diana's death, and now famous people will regularly win lawsuits against the press. Kate Middleton in particular is known to protect the private life of her children, and she has sued the press and won several times. The most recent one being this one where a French gossip newspaper took photos of her children on a ski vacation. And I have to say that as a French person, I do respect that culture of privacy, so that's why I'll only show you info that the celebrities in this video shared willingly. And it's not just the law. We also have a culture of not bothering people, especially in big cities like Paris. And to tell you more about this, we have to take a look at Natalie Portman's move to Paris. So this is not a recent one. She moved to Paris around 10 years ago because her husband at the time was French. But she recently was in the news because she bought a mansion in the Eiffel Tower neighborhood. And you know that I love architecture, so I'm gonna show you a few photos. This used to be an embassy. It is an absolutely gorgeous building, and for around 15 million euros, she has a very nice view of her Champs de Mars, which are the gardens near the Eiffel Tower. And I've talked about her in a past video, but she has really interesting cultural observations about France. And she says in a French interview that Paris is the easiest place to live when you're a celebrity because Parisians are respectful of your private life and just kind of leave you alone. And she also says, and I find that pretty funny, that most of the people who come up to her in the street are tourists and not Parisians. In my personal experience, this is 100% true. In Paris, just like in other big cities, you see celebrities all the time. And after a while, you're kind of just used to it. And my personal rule is that if I see a celebrity and I don't have anything meaningful to say to them, then I'm not gonna bother them. And I think most people agree with me. A while back, I was a +1 at an apartment party with several very famous A-listers, including someone who won an Oscar. And obviously that is not my usual type of party. That was like my one and only time being at that type of parties. But I have to say that it really felt like a normal apartment party, and no one who had no reason to spoke to them bothered them, and no single person asked for a photo. Also, in France, we're a more egalitarian society, so in general, it is important to not stand out too much, even for celebrities. And often Natalie Portman talks about this and says that the highest compliment someone can give her is that she's very discreet. I've talked about it before on the channel, but in France, obvious displays of wealth, like for example supercars, are not seen as very tasteful, and people instead try to focus on this idea of being discreet and less obvious displays of wealth. And another way we tend to be more discreet in France is through beauty standards. For example, there's this idea that you should find what works best for you to highlight your natural features instead of keeping up with the trends if they don't work for you. I personally really like French skincare for that reason, and in particular today's sponsor, Typology. Typology is a French skincare brand, and all their products are made in France with only the best ingredients. I've been using their product every day for over a year, and I really enjoy their tinted routine, which is perfect if you like a no makeup look that still gives you a bit of an extra boost. I love their tinted concealer that contains caffeine, and and that has been amazing for the dark circles under my eyes. I also have their tinted serum, which feels super light and has vitamin C for a glowy effect. Recently, I've also been trying their tinted lip balm, which I'm wearing right now, and it hydrates your lips and colors them in a very discreet way. At the moment, they are offering a free radiance mask with every purchase over $50. So it is the perfect time to try high quality French skincare. But there are other reasons why celebrities are moving to France. The first one being a bit obvious when you think about it. And the other one, well, I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. So as you know, I have a video series where I react to celebrities speaking French. And lately, I have to tell you, I have almost too much content. It seems that every celebrity I like is either promoting a movie in France, acting in French, or saying they're gonna move to France. And, don't get me wrong, I love that people are interested in my culture, but I kind of want to understand why, and also why now. And it turns out I'm not the only one noticing that, because there has been a series of articles on the topic, including this one called Why Hollywood Stars Are Fleeing to France. And it turns out that our movie industry is kind of having a moment and attracting a lot of big names. As you probably know, recently Hollywood has been through a lot. There has been the writer strikes, the studio mergers, and the production slowdowns, which means that LA is becoming less and less attractive for some actors, like Aaron Paul, who decided to move to Paris after the LA fires last summer. And it seems that in comparison of all that, France is becoming an attractive alternative, especially since we already have a strong movie industry with trained crews that are used to working on international productions. And also, it doesn't hurt that our government is attracting international productions with generous tax breaks, which means that production costs end up being way cheaper than in Hollywood. So this is probably why you've noticed that so many TV shows and movies are filmed in France recently, and even some major American productions were moved to France after the Hollywood strikes, like the movie Head of States, where they were able to recreate pretty much every single country in the movie only in the south of France. Also, the one I'm really excited about is the new season of White Lotus, which is gonna be in Saint-Tropez, and I can't wait to see who the French actors are. So yeah, this is one of the reasons why you see movie stars relocating to France, at least for a few months, and then coming back and promoting the movies they've shot. But another thing I find interesting is that our smaller independent cinema is attracting big names like Angelina Jolie, who recently starred in Couture, which is a French-American fashion industry cancer drama. And by the way, she's also reportedly planning to move to France. I found out about that in this article from Le Monde, where they interview Olivier Assayas, who is the French director that made the movie The Wizard of the Kremlin, which is a movie where Jude Law, who by the way also has a house in France, plays Vladimir Putin, which is quite a change from seeing him in the rom-coms I love, if you ask me. Anyway, Olivier Assayas says that independent European cinema is currently attracting a lot of American actors who want to enjoy more freedom in smaller productions and are tired of just acting in front of a green screen and starring in mega franchises. And an example of that is the work of French director Rebecca Zlotowski, who has a history of casting people she knows to love France in her movies. Like recently, she made A Private Life with Jodie Foster, who acts fully in French, but she also made Planetarium with Natalie Portman and Lily Rose Depp, who is the daughter of French actress Vanessa Paradis and Johnny Depp. And all of this also tends to attract American directors like Wes Anderson, for example, who has been living in France for a while, or Jim Jarmusch, who recently applied for French citizenship and who says, "My next films will all be shot in France. Shooting in the US is prohibitive. It's stressful, it's traumatizing." And if you've watched this video I made, you know that coming to France to live a more free and creative life is not a new trend. We've always had famous people like Hemingway, Josephine Baker, and James Baldwin come and live in Paris. And there's kind of a certain romantic idea of Paris in particular that's associated with artists, writer, and high culture in general that has been attracting people to France for centuries. And if you've seen the movie Midnight in Paris, it's exactly this idealized, artsy version of France I'm talking about. And listen, I have no doubt that our culture and our movie industry are a big part of why celebrities are moving to France, but I think there's also something else people are not talking about in official interviews. So while I was researching this video, I looked at a lot of AD home tours, and I couldn't help but grow a little bit suspicious. And not because these are staged, I already know that, and that's not what I'm gonna tell you about. So one tour in particular that caught my eye is Lenny Kravitz's incredible mansion in Paris. It's in a palace that used to belong to a countess, and it is incredibly well decorated, which makes sense given that he has an interior design studio. And one thing I noticed is that this palace that I could only dream about is described described in an AD article as a crash pad. And they also say that he has a compound in the Bahamas and a ranch in Brazil. And here my suspicions were kind of confirmed by Johnny Depp's story. So as you probably know, he was with a French woman, Vanessa Paradis, for a really long time. And he has been very vocal about how much he loves Europe and he loves France. And he even bought a full village in the south of France where you can stay in different rooms that are the different buildings of the village. Like you can sleep in a church or in a cafe, which I have to admit is pretty cool. And many years ago, he was interviewed about his love of Europe by The Guardian. And at this point, I think the interviewer, and most of us, I'd say, thought he was living in Europe. So there's kind of an awkward moment where the interviewer kind of asks him if he would ever consider living in the US again. And his answer is, and I quote, "Well, I kind of do. I'm between whenever I end up on location and then the States." And here I love this article because the interviewer writes, "What? Hang on a minute. Why did he leave France? He makes a sore noise. Part grunt, part harumph." And then this is Johnny Depp's answer. "'Cause France wanted a piece of me. They wanted me to become a permanent resident. Permanent residency status, which changes everything." And he mimes peeling off notes in his palm. Dough. Money. This is a very funny interview because Johnny Depp speaks very candidly about not wanting to pay taxes in France. Like, he likes France enough to buy a village, but not enough to become a permanent resident. And I like that the interviewer pushes back and mentions that the taxes are kind of the thing that are funding what Johnny Depp likes about our country, like the culture or the safety. And here I am not dunking on Johnny Depp in particular. Like, he's the only one saying openly that he doesn't want to become a permanent resident, but I'm sure pretty much everyone in this video does the same. Although I can't obviously know for sure. In any case, AD makes the job easier for us because they have all of these roundup articles of celebrities' homes, which I have to admit I enjoy looking at. So my point here is that celebrities don't move somewhere like a normal person would do. They just maintain houses around the world for different reasons. Like maybe they're an investment, maybe they're a status symbol, maybe they're a project that gives them some kind of cultural prestige like buying a vineyard. And at the moment, it seems that France fits particularly well into the celebrity circuit. For example, it is not a coincidence that all the farmhouses, chateaus, and villages I mentioned in this video are all in the same region of Provence, which is only a short helicopter ride away from Cannes, Saint-Tropez, and Monaco, which means that they can be secluded, but that they're still perfectly positioned for the type of social calendar a celebrity would maintain. So no, celebrities are not exactly fleeing the US to escape to France permanently like some headlines make it seem. They're just adding another location to their list. And that's all for me today. If you enjoyed this video, go check out the ones that are on screen right now. I'll see you there. Bye for now.